Hello, everybody. My name's Neil Thompson. I'm a senior editor on the books team, and I am very happy to welcome a true publishing legend and one of America's best-selling authors ever. Since his breakout novel, The Notebook, published in 1996, Nicholas Sparks has written about a book a year, and each of his 16 novels have been major bestsellers. Half of them have been made into films, most recently Safe Haven, which was released in February. Next up is The Best of Me, which is being filmed now, and another one following on the heels of that. Nicholas Sparks' books deeply explore the range of human experience and emotion. True love, lost love, fate, the past, commitment, death, loss, secrets, and family. Clearly themes that readers are very hungry for. Current tally of the books he's sold, I think, is about a bazillion. I checked. And he's not slowing down at all. I imagine he probably wrote this morning, probably more than any of us could write in a month. So I would like for all of us Amazonians to give a warm, grateful welcome to Nicholas Sparks.
Hello, everyone. I didn't work at Amazon. See? You're all here.
We're all nice people.
Of course.
Real quick, so Nicholas and I are going to talk for a few minutes, and then we'll open it up to some questions from you all. And that's pretty much it. He's not going to do any signing afterwards, unfortunately. Got a busy schedule, but thanks you all for being here.
Oh, my pleasure.
Let's jump right in. I wondered if you could discuss sentimentality, romance, and love in popular fiction. It's pretty rare for male writers to explore those things, and I wondered, are they afraid, or are you just brilliant because most readers are female?
No, I think the big thing is that in the end, and looking back on most people's lives, right, the biggest emotion that they're going to remember is love. It's the one that defines them the most, whether it's because they had it or because they didn't, right? I mean, you start with your parents, your siblings, the people who mean the most to you, your friends. You know, there might be one person in particular, but to me, it is the emotion that pretty much drives all of the goodness in the world. You know, it's the love of children, the love of friends, the things you'll do for others. And so for me, it is just really one of those primal emotions to explore and to write about, because it is so profound. It's profound in the best positive ways, right? You have fear and anger, that's on the other end, and you know there are a lot of authors who explore those kinds of emotions. But for me, you know, I tend to be more of a half glass full guy. So let's see. So yes, love, romance, sentimentality. In my novels, what I can say is that I worked very hard not to cross over into the mawkish or the sentimental or the cliched. I do my best not to do that. There are some who think I do. I personally think I don't. It's a very fine line. I work very hard not to cross that line. There's this really fine line between drama and melodrama, and it's almost like threading a needle, at least when I'm in the process of writing. And by the time I'm finished with a novel, most every paragraph has probably been gone over at least 20 times. It's been rewritten numerous times. It's been edited by people who I greatly respect, and I think we walk that line very well. As far as romance, I talked about love, why I do it. It's a positive thing. Sentiment, you know, there's sentiment and sentimentality. There's that fine line. It's the same as drama and melodrama. And as far as the romantic elements, you know, it's funny. A lot of people say that these are very romantic books or whatever. I just put people on dates and let them fall in love. I think that's just, I'm like, I don't see it. You know, they're not always buying flowers and throwing rose petals or anything like that. They're going out in rowboats with swans floating by, right? I
mean, so that's your secret, right?
Right.
That's the secret formula.
Yeah.
Put them on a date, see what happens.
Yeah, you put them on a date and you see what happens, and you try to keep the dialogue very real, so that it sounds honest. I think that's probably the most important thing whenever you're writing about love or sentiment or anything romantic, is you want it to be honest. And by that I mean you want the reader to feel the emotion before you write what the emotion is. By the time one of my characters say, "I love you," You should be like, well, I knew that. I knew that 7 pages ago. It took you long enough. That to me is what you're trying to do when you're trying to write about those things.
So you said you're a glass half full kind of guy.
Yeah.
And I think your books are mostly hopeful. You know, love will win out in the end.
Sure.
Are you personally a hopeful person?
Yeah, I think so. For the most part, except when I'm not. But for the most part, right? And we all have our days. But yeah, I think so. You know, it's funny though, when you get into that love, I've said this before in different interviews, but you know, my books, you know, they do have love, and you said that love always triumphs. You know, of course, if you've read my work, it doesn't always triumph. Sometimes they're sad at the end. I've heard rumors that some people have actually shed tears over some of my novels. And to me, you know, the important thing about that is that love and tragedy, they're linked. You can't have one without the other. And the greater the love, the greater the tragedy. And if you really think about that, see, every day around the world, millions and millions of people die. We all go on, we all showed up to work, we don't care. But the moment it's someone that you love, your sister, your spouse, your grandparents, your friend, it's like the world collapses. And the greater the love, the greater the tragedy. And so really, all love stories, whether it's between a couple or with parents or children or friends or whatever, with your dog, by definition, all love stories have to end in tragedy. So I explore that theme as well.
One of your characters, Ira, in The Longest Ride, says, as he's sitting in his car waiting for help,
Yes.
he's talking about the longest of rides being this thing called life. And that's a theme throughout many of your books, the ups and downs of life. And I wondered, for you, how's life? I mean, could you have imagined when you were growing up, moving all over the country, that this would be the life you ended up with?
No. And it's, to be quite frank, it's very interesting because I don't really think about it much. You know, it's very interesting. People say, well, what is it like? You know, you've written these books, you've had all these movies made. The truth of the matter is, I'm like, yeah, that's in the past. What am I doing now? I've got I got the best of me filming now. The Longest Ride is getting ready. We're doing casting. Why are we talking about The Notebook or The Lucky One or Safe Haven or something like that, right? You're always, I guess, focused ahead on the future. And so life for me, I think that's just part and parcel with who I am. I kind of like to set a goal and then see if I could reach it, whether it's, I wonder if I could write a book or write a novel that people will enjoy, or I wonder if I can have a film that people will enjoy. And you know, I set a goal, and sometimes I make it and sometimes I don't. But I've learned over time that it's the journey itself that provides meaning to my life, right? There's this great Chinese proverb, right? It's a curse, really, right? May you lead an interesting life. I lead an interesting life. And because it's an interesting life, yeah, I deal with interesting people. I get to do interesting things. And so that's good.
Nice. I didn't want to go back to The Notebook, but since you raised it.
Oh yeah, that one.
That film, as you may know, launched a couple careers, and I wondered, do you get thank you Christmas cards every year?
You know, no. I mean, you work together, and I couldn't be more thrilled and with the performances in any number of my films. You know, Ryan or Rachel or Jenna and Jim in that particular film. And it's great to watch people grow and really stretch themselves. You know, I'm a producer on these films, as is Teresa Park. She's my manager here and my agent and all that stuff. But one of the things that we ask our performers to do is to just really stretch themselves, because you don't know how the film is going to look until it's all put together, right? So let's say you have a scene and he's telling something about his past, right? So we say, hey, let's do it with maybe a little more emotion. Now let's do it with more, or let's say frustration. Now let's do it from an area where it's more sad, or let's do an area where you're just pissed off about it, right? So we ask for these different kinds of of emotional beats. Because until you kind of put all the movie together, you might say, oh, I need some anger in this scene, right? It's been kind of soft. Let's juice this up. If you hadn't filmed it, it won't be in the hopper. So that's what we ask, and I think that the actors really respond to that, and we've tended to work with directors who do that as well. All of the directors we've worked with are really all about character and trying to get not only to the surface emotion, but what's really driving that surface emotion to bring out these great performances. And I think that's why not only so many careers have been launched, but why we've been so fortunate in casting. I mean, if you go into one of these films, you say, okay, you're not just running from robots or dinosaurs, right? You gotta be happy, sad, you gotta fall in love, you gotta be angry, you gotta be frustrated, you gotta stand your ground, you gotta give in, you have to do it all. And we're gonna make you do it out of order with a stranger that you're supposed to be in love with. It's tough, and so the directors have done really well, and then the performances by the people in the films have been I've been very blessed.
So we asked folks on Facebook and Twitter if they had any questions, and there are two related ones sort of playing off what you just discussed that I wanted to ask sort of in tandem. One on Twitter, favorite screen adaptation from a follower named Badisha, and then on Facebook, Beth wanted to know about your involvement in films. You've been very involved right from the beginning, and she wondered about whether you're at a point where you insist on picking a director, insist on writing the screenplay. So if you could discuss some of that.
Sure. Best adaptation. I've been very blessed, and I know that's, and I have. They've all been hits. They've all been successful. I mean, I will say, the number one DVD on Black Friday was not The Notebook of mine, right? There's other films. So people tend to pick the films that mean the most to them for whatever reason. I don't think there's any question that at the present time, the film that's most likely to stand the test of time will be The Notebook, just because it's kind of entered the cultural pantheon. And again, I'm not taking credit for that. It's a wonderful director, Ryan and Rachel, and then he took off his shirt in Crazy Stupid Love, and that set off a whole new launch of The Notebook, right? Little things happen, right? And I'm like, yeah, I did that. Yeah, like I did that, right? So these things happen. I get that, and so it's kind of entered the cultural pantheon, and it was certainly a terrific film, and it's one that most people associate with me. The one we've watched most in my house, because I had children, is A Walk to Remember, and that's a film that means a lot to me. It was a story that was really inspired by my sister and her battle with cancer, and it's just such a sweet show. I've got daughters, and look, you be like Jamie, just a good person, right? It's full of good lessons, so I like A Walk to Remember. With that said, I've liked them all, right? I mean, I thought Safe Haven, The Lucky One, Dear John, they've all been very good. So we'll leave it at, I don't really have a favorite. I think you're all gonna love The Best of Me, because we're in filming now, and you'll love The Longest Ride. It's pretty amazing, so I think you're really gonna like that. So then the other question was how involved casting?
Yeah.
From the beginning, I'm always involved. What people, and I have say. I have clout. The man, right? However you want to say it. But it's funny, you have to understand that films are a very collaborative process. So there's lots of people with say in a movie. You've got the studio, okay, they're footing the bill. They have, so you have them, they have say. The director, right? The director, he's the one who has to work with them on a daily basis. So he's the one who has to know whether he can pull a particular performance out of a particular person, out of a particular actor. So the director has say. Sometimes you've got actors who have clout, like Kevin Costner. He's in my first movie. He had more clout than me at that point in time, obviously, right? And so he had a big say in casting. Then you have other producers. They have a say in casting. So, and this doesn't only go to casting or the selection of the director, the screenplay. So many of these decisions, you got a lot of people with clout. So you work together, it's collaborative. Yeah, you can put your foot down, but if you start putting your foot down on every little thing, I think most likely you would not have a very good career in Hollywood, because it just doesn't work that way, because sometimes what you want, you don't have control over it. Oh, I want actor X in this film. be perfect, that's who we want. Well, he's way too expensive and he's booked for the next 2 years. Oh, right? It happens, and this happens. Sometimes things come up for scheduling or for budget or for location. And so the studio sometimes has the final say. It really comes down to the specific decision, certainly informed about all of them. I certainly offer an opinion on all of them, but you pick and choose your moments when you say no very wisely. If any of you ever get into this business, that would be my recommendation to you, okay? Pick and choose.
Wonder if we could talk a little bit about the process of writing, the craft, and the difficult work of writing. People think it's sometimes that it's this, it's this artistic endeavor, and there's definitely art that's part of it, but it's a grind. It's work. Wonder if you could talk about your routines, your rituals, where and when, and how you get the job done year after year.
Yeah. Let's see. Writing is very hard. It's the hardest thing that I do. I think that there is a difference between writing a good book and writing a book that will reach an audience around the world that will hopefully stand the test of time. I'm not saying that I've done that every time. It's certainly what I strive to try to do. And it's really hard for me because. At least I think it's hard because I do my best. We all know that there are certain elements that are always the same in the novels, right? It's North Carolina. You're going to have a couple fall in love. It's probably a small town of some sort. Yeah, but after that, I've tried to vary the themes, the length, the tone, the style, the point of view, virtually everything in those novels. But it's hard because my readers, everyone thinks the readers are all like your age. No, I mean, they run from like 12 to 100. And they're all the way around the world. And so how do you write stories that appeal to all of those people? Therein lies the challenge. So writing comes down to a couple of factors. First, you have the conception of the story. The conception of the story can take a long time. And for me, because I've been so prolific in Hollywood, I do have to take into account the films. And will this work in film? This is just when I'm thinking about possible ideas. Because if you're trying to do something original, it can't just be original for a book. For instance, I could never write a love story that takes place on the Titanic. Why not? There's never been a book about it. See, the film, right? I can't do that. So I have to take my films into account, other films into account, say, no, it's too close to that story. No, and I have to do the same with television. So you have this conception. It's got to be original for book, original for film. Then you sit down and you start writing, and on a good day, I'll write 2,000 words. That's usually what I set out to try to do. Usually takes about 6 months to finish a novel. In that 6 months, there's probably 70 days of creation. And so what am I doing the other 110 days? You're editing the 70 days. I'm in Seattle talking to Amazon people. I'm on set filming The Best of Me. There's other things that come up. I have children, so there's other things that come up. So to write 2,000 words, you're probably looking at 5 to 6 hours. And if we just keep it all simple. So what is writing, right? It's 5 hours to do 2,000 words. It's 400 words an hour. Are we all with me? I type 40 words a minute. Okay? So 10 minutes. Okay, 10 minutes. What am I doing the other 50? 50 minutes out of every hour. You're staring at the 10 minutes that you wrote and editing it over and over and over and over. And so it's a long process. For me, it feels like it takes forever to get through. From the outside looking in, you say, oh, wow, 6 months, that's nothing. It's a long 6 months, I will say, because it's what you think about, and you're trying to make everything as good as I possibly can.
So because at Amazon we occasionally sell books other than yours, what growing up, was there anyone you read who inspired you, made you want to become a writer?
Stephen King, right, Stephen King. Yeah, Stephen King, he says, look, tell a great story and write it as well as you can. See what happens. That's what I try to do. I try to write a story that I think people will really enjoy, and then I try to write it as well as I can, and it's worked out okay for me. I've worked with a lot of good people, and I've certainly had my fair share of breaks, and at the same time, I've done my best to put out the best quality work that I can. I think that that's what I'm most proud of in my career, and whether you may or may not agree, but I would say what I'm most proud of in my own career is that I never got lazy. So you have to understand that it's really easy to get lazy in my career as a writer, because let's say you're on novel number 18, which I'm on. Let's say I write the greatest one I've ever written, okay? But versus the worst one I've ever written. The sales will probably be about the same, because most people are reading me based on the previous 17. Now, over time, that will diminish and your sales will go down if you keep putting out clunkers, right? But imagine, you work so hard and you're like, if I kill myself, what you get is another chance to kill yourself again. And so it's really a long internal process, and you really have to be driven by the thought that you want to put out the best quality work that you can, primarily for you. It's for you, and then you're hopeful that the readers will enjoy it. I take it very seriously that anyone who buys my work or sees my work, they're giving up time in their life to do this. They're spending money that they could do something else. It's very, very important to me that I put out something that I think people will enjoy, and there we are.
And do you have a specific reader in mind? Is it the masses? Is it one person? Is it family? Is it just yourself?
I have two readers, my agent and my editor. And if I get through them, I'm okay. Of course, I write for me, but really those are the two readers before it hits everybody. And it's been a process that's worked from the beginning, and they're very mean to me. They never let me slide with anything. And I think that my career has certainly benefited from their wonderful and wise guidance.
Last question from me. You, over the years, have been very generous to a number of organizations, one of which is your alma mater, Notre Dame.
Sure.
My dad is an alumnus as well, and
Go Irish.
wondered if there's anything you can do to bring a national championship back to Notre Dame.
National champion.
Do you have influence somehow?
No, I have no influence for Notre Dame, although I must say that I was a former athlete when I was growing up, and it's how I got to Notre Dame. I was a track and field athlete, and so I got a full scholarship, and that's how I paid my way through school, and it's why I'm a writer today. Well, at that point in time, my big love was track and field, and so, I don't know, about 8 years ago, I said, I wonder, and I love track and field, I said, I wonder if I could be a good coach. I wonder if I could win some national championships. Yeah, I did. At the high school level. Ended up coaching one of the best high school teams in history. You can watch my team on YouTube. Yeah, so I know how to do it. Can't help Notre Dame. They're still trying to figure it out. They haven't asked me for my guidance on this.
Maybe football coaches in your future career?
No football coach.
Okay, let's open it up to some of these folks.
Sure.
We got about another 15, maybe 20 minutes. And maybe if I point to you, stand up and ask your question. I'll probably repeat it so we get it on film. But
Anyone have a question?
Don't be shy. I'll let you pick.
Right here. Yes, you. Yes.
Okay. Question. Does your wife expect you to be as romantic as
To a certain extent, sure, right? Does my wife expect me to be romantic? Yeah, of course, right? But at the same time, my wife's a pragmatist. Sometimes she says, what would really be romantic? Take out the garbage. Like, we're ordinary people, right? We have 5 children. I have 6 dogs in my house. They bark. It's a chaotic, wonderful little life, right? We certainly have our moments of great romance. We also argue like Noah and Allie did, right? That's what, these are people. It's a relationship. Yeah, you.
How much time do you spend reading, and what do you read? And also, how did you become a writer from a colleague,
From an athlete, yeah.
And if you could repeat part of it.
Sure. How much do I read? I probably read about 100 books a year. I tend to, it's probably about half of it's fiction, and then the other half is nonfiction. In the nonfiction world, I read a lot of biographies or histories or economics. That's just my passions or whatever. It can be the history of anything, salt, sports, anything, right? I just like to read that stuff. Fiction, a lot of commercial fiction that you sell a lot of here at Amazon. There's some foreign fiction, there's some classics, there's some literary fiction. It really kind of depends. I'm probably like a lot of people. You look and see what the book is about. You read a few excerpts and see if you want to go ahead and pursue it. So I read a lot. It's a passion of mine. So I just like to do it. I read frequently just because I like to. How do you move from from what I did into being a writer? I think the safest thing to say is that every author's journey was very different, and so my journey is my own. And it was really, I was running, I got injured. I kind of went crazy one summer when I was 19 years old. My mom got tired of it, and so she said, look, because I couldn't run, and she said, don't just pout, do something. And I said, what? She said, well, I don't know, go write a book. So I did, right? I was 19 years old. And I wrote a second one at 22, didn't know what to do with my life. Growing up, though, with that said, I was always a big fan of story, whether it was novels or television or film. And it's a joke I always tell college students or high school students. I say, I learned a lot of writing from watching TV and films. I say, so if you want your kid to be a good writer, make sure you park him in front of the TV all day. It teaches you how to end on those cliffhangers right before the commercial. Have you not noticed the ends of my chapters, how you can't stop turning the pages? TV. That's where it comes from. So great stories. So I got it in my head to try it. And then I was 28 and years later, and I just kind of hit a point where I said, I want to chase a dream. I have a job. I have responsibility. I had 2 kids at that time. I was selling pharmaceuticals. And I said, well, but I felt like I wanted to chase a dream again. And so I started writing again in my spare time. And I was very fortunate that the Notebook came out and it did okay. So it was a journey that was based on the love of story, I guess. But my journey, again, is very different than. You could ask Stephen King that question, would be totally different, or Grisham or Gillian Flynn. Everyone's journey, how they get there is their own.
You mentioned that Walk to Remember was based on your sisters. How many books that you've written are based on people in your life, and how many are
Fiction. Yeah, how many books are inspired by family events? How many are entirely fictional? That's really hard to answer, because if you look at a novel like The Choice, the story was not inspired by any events in my life, but the characters were. The 2 characters. The character was modeled after someone that I know, both of them. So I don't know how to count that one. Walk to Remember was inspired by my sister, Message in a Bottle by my father. The Notebook was originally inspired by my wife's grandparents. Dear John was inspired by my cousin. The Rescue came about because I was thinking about my son. Bend in the Road because I was thinking about my brother-in-law. But again, that was thinking about my brother-in-law, but then you come up with a good story, which really didn't have roots in necessarily my life. Of course, every novel has little bits and pieces, right? I've gone out to dinner, so if they go out to dinner in the book, come on, I've had sushi, right? Like in The Longest Ride. So it's funny. All novels in some way are a reflection of the author and how they view the world, and their own experiences within it, which forms how they view the world. Questions over here?
When you conceptualize your story, do you decide how it's going to begin and end before you actually start writing the book?
When I conceptualize my story, do I know the beginning and the end before I start writing? I do, yes. One of the things that I try to do in the novel, see, we all know that these are love stories, right? And you all know that you may or may not cry. At the same time, you will probably go through all of the emotion of life as you read them, because that's the goal of this particular genre, right? It's to make you feel like there's an honesty to the story. And to get that honesty, what you have is real emotion, genuinely evoked, not manipulated. So you go through all of the emotions of life from beginning to end, so that by the time you close the cover, you feel like you've led a mini life between the pages. That's the purpose. A thriller is supposed to thrill, a horror novel is supposed to scare you. Mine is a mini life. So you have to have all of these emotions. So to answer your question, if I know that I have to know the ending, because, okay, like let's say I'm writing a book and I didn't know whether the character was, the guy was gonna die, okay? Well, let's say as I'm writing the book, I've also killed off the mom and the sister and the dog, and right? And now I kill the guy. Well, now it's melodramatic. It's too far. It's too sad. So see, I have to know the ending to know how much weight to give all of these other emotions, right? For instance, here's a secret. If the couple's gonna get together, they live, someone else is dying. Like, there's a secret, right? So like in The Guardian, I had to kill the dog. It's just, yeah. Right here.
I hope you don't have to answer this question too dramatically, but I'm wondering who you said no to. Like, was Jennifer Aniston ever in the running, and you were just kind of like,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've had to say no to people. There have been a lot of people who very much wanted the roles, and they just weren't right for them for one reason or another. I would prefer not to give names because it's really not my place. That would be their story to tell, not necessarily mine. But you want to, yeah, they're pretty coveted roles, and a lot of people have wanted to do them. But what we like to say is that, or what I've always said is that, in the end, for the most part, the people have chosen themselves for the roles. They've been the right choice. In other words, you start with one person, and then, what's the casting process like, right? Oh, let's go behind the scenes in Hollywood. It's really, you should see how scientifically we do this. What we do is we stick them in the room together and we say, they look like they like each other? What do you think? Is she flirting with him? What do you think? You're looking for chemistry. How do you define chemistry, right? If you don't have good chemistry, the film's not going to work. So you can be a great actress or actor, but if you don't have great chemistry with the person you're going to be in it with, it's just not going to work. So lots of things come into play.
sounds like an Amazon interview.
Yeah, kind of. Right. Questions? Right here, the guy.
What was maybe the single moment that was most thrilling as a writer? Was it getting an offer of representation from an agent, a publishing contract offer, seeing your first book hit the bestseller list? What was kind of
Well, the single the single biggest one is I think when I sold it, when the sale of the Notebook to at that time Warner Books at the first time, and it was very short-lived, and it's probably the nature of my personality. I tend not to enjoy the good fortune. I tend to, oh, that's great. Oh no, now I got to do this, right? So and essentially that's what happened, because you could sell it for a lot up front, which I did, which is fantastic, right? Because it was a substantial sum of money for a first novel. I was absolutely thrilled. But by the next day, I'm like, how are people going to find this book in the bookstore? There's 100,000 books in here. Go to the Amazon pages. How do you find an unknown author, right? That's just so you have that's exciting, but the reality is, it's not done yet. The whole thing, everything about my career has been a journey, and the key has been to do the best quality work you can, work with really great people, do interesting things, and then enjoy it as it's going on. So yeah, there's been a lot of exciting things. The first film, I'm getting ready to go to Christmas Eve Mass. My kids and wife are heading out the door. The phone rings. Hello, is this Nicholas Sparks? Yeah. Hey, this is Kevin Costner. Well, that was pretty exciting at that point in time, let me tell you. Even the nuns were excited at Mass. Really, Kevin Costner? I'm like, shh, we're at Mass, right? It was exciting, right? But you still had to make a good film, right? And it's just the way it is. Lots of wonderful moments, lots of failures, written 2 novels, I'm sorry, I've half written 2 novels that you will never see. I've thrown them away, right? Sometimes stories just don't work. Fits and starts, a lot of struggle to get things right. I've had writer's block for periods of time. So you have the good, the bad, and you just do your best to live the journey.
So I remember the movie Dear John and the book Dear John.
Yeah.
They ended differently.
Yes.
So who made the decision?
Yeah, the decision, Dear John, the novel, and the film had a slightly different ending. This is fairly common. There's often changes between a novel and the film, and it's because there are different mediums and they have kind of different rules. Some things work great in film that don't work as well in a novel, and vice versa. Like introspection works great in a novel. You can get inside someone's head. It's hard to film. What do you put one of them bubble things above with their thoughts? It doesn't work, right? So you have to add, let's say, elements to maybe illustrate the introspection. So now you're adding things that weren't even in the novel in the first place. But to put those things in to illustrate the introspection, now I have to take things out that were in the novel, right? It's this fine balance. In the end, what we try to do is to capture the spirit of the story and the spirit of the characters, and then to make the best film possible. And so endings have been different. You know, Walk to Remember had a different ending as well. So did The Notebook. So Dear John wasn't the only one. In the end, what you're trying to do is to make a film that you hope people will enjoy. You know, I had the chance to do the story my way. That was the book. You had the chance to imagine it your way. That's when you read it. Now, to me, it's differences or not, as long as it's really true to the spirit. It's just another wonderful chance to enjoy the story in a new way. Kind of like seeing a show on Broadway or Lion King, the cartoon, you know, the movie, or seeing it on Broadway. It's just different.
You mentioned you're an avid reader, so I'm just wondering if there's one book that you would call your favorite or one that you've maybe read several times because you felt like it's really shaped.
Yeah, there's a few of them. I tend to reread books that I've enjoyed in the past, sometimes fiction, sometimes nonfiction. The book I probably have read the most in my life, I read it in 5th grade. It was called Blitz. It was about a horse. The horse was named Blitz. And I must have read that thing 40 times. I liked that story. So I don't know, maybe a year and a half ago, I ordered it on Amazon. And it arrived, and I started reading it. I said, this isn't very good. Why do I love this book? You know, it's funny what you think is great in 5th grade, right? I thought it was the best novel ever written. And it's a good story. I gave it to my kids. They enjoyed it. They were very mean to poor Blitz, some of those owners. Oh, but he wins in the end. Good for Blitz.
A name like Blitz, you would hope he wins in the end.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
I was wondering if you think romance is dead today.
Is Roman...
I know you have 2 daughters. Are you worried about them growing up in a world with, Tinder and Snapchat and not so much?
No, I text them that I love them all the time.
That's all they need, right?
Is romance dead? No. Y'all want romance to be dead? No. Then it won't die. People know it works. I mean, and there's a no. I mean, look, it's a busy world. People are busy, and there's certainly more distractions. But let me tell you, one of the rules I have for writing, because I get asked this question a lot: how do you write women so well? How do you write old people so well? How do you write different periods so well? How do you write, whatever? How do you do that? It's because it all emanates from the belief that human nature changes much more slowly than technology. Love feels like love did 25 years ago, like it did 50 years ago. So does sadness. And I try to move people with genuine emotion. So no, romance is not dead. It changes, it evolves, and in the end, some things work every time, right? And look, Valentine's Day, I mean, it's still a big holiday. Check your sales on Valentine's Day for chocolate, right? I mean, it works. Questions?
I have a quick one.
Yeah.
Your kids, you've got 5 kids.
Yep.
What's the age range? What's their relationship to your books?
22, 20, 14, 12, and 12. Relationship to my books. I don't know.
Every single word?
No. No, I think Savannah's leading the way with about 3. They say, we see the movies. Like, it's not the same. But, I mean, my oldest son, he likes hunting and fishing and then so they're going to read what they read. They'll I'm sure they'll work through them every now and then. But it doesn't really matter to me. To them, I'm their dad, and to them, I'm not a famous author. Certainly, I'm a writer. They know I write books, but that's how it manifests itself on our daily life in the house, right? What do? I was writing today. Oh, okay. That's what they see. So they don't see author; they just see a writer.
Anyone else?
Do you have writers that you mentor through the creative process?
Do I have
Writers that you mentor through the creative process?
writers that I mentor through the creative process? I try not to. I have one and a half, we'll call it. Writing is nothing I can tell you. There's nothing I could critique your work. I could say rewrite it. I could say it's good. I could do all these things. It's not like that. My opinion doesn't matter. I'm not a publisher. I'm certainly, I'm not the one you have to please. I'm not that one, right? I mean, you need to please someone else. And in the end, as I said, you have to, writing is very personal. And I think those that have had some success in the world or in the world of writing have done it for their own internal goals, whatever those might be. Maybe they just simply love to tell stories, right? That's a wonderful goal. For me, I like to see if I can. Can I tell a new, wonderful story? I like to set a goal and see if I could do it. Whatever your reason is for doing it, then then as a writer, you have to meet your own standards, right? First, you got to please you. Then you have your small circle that you should develop on your own because they're the ones who will be with you throughout the process. That's just my opinion. But again, everyone's journey toward being a writer is their own.
So we have time for one last question. I think I see a hand over there.
Do I want my children to follow in my path? If they want to. It's their lives. They will make their own choices just as I did. And we'll see. I mean, it's a good gig if you can do it. They also see how hard it is at times, right? They also see that. So they probably, we'll see what they do. I have no idea what they're going to do. I have no idea. If they want to, great. If they don't, that's great too.
All right. Well, this was a huge treat for me personally. I think you guys enjoyed it. We thank you so much for being here.
Thanks.
Let's give it up.
It was fun.